Okay, folks, let me ask you a question. Who here loves taking flights? Who loves to fly? Who's a big fan of flying? Do you have any airline enthusiasts here? People love to fly? There we go. All right.
American Airlines.
All right. All right, Alex, how long is it from Poland to the United States? To New York?
Depends on where you're going, but like 7 hours to New York and 9 to LA.
All right.
More or less.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Well, Rich Kaplan is our airline enthusiast, and just to give you a little introduction, he had the coolest interview several months ago. I just want to fill you guys in, being from the Long Beach Island Park area. Who here remembers the Miracle on the Hudson, the famous flight? Well, just so happens you all know the famous pilot was Sully, right?
Right.
What might you not know, though, is that the air traffic controller on that famous flight, just so if anyone didn't remember, the Miracle on the Hudson is when he had to make an emergency landing and he landed the plane in the river and not one person died. But did anyone realize the air traffic controller on that incredible, probably one of the most famous flights ever, lives right here in Long Beach? So Rich interviewed the air traffic controller. It was quite a fascinating story, and he always has, every week, an interesting report. And a couple of weeks ago I said to Rich, I just saw this amazing story online about how it's becoming very controversial about people bringing pets on airlines, especially one controversy happened when some lady's dog bit another passenger. So it's becoming that people who are obviously blind bring service dogs. So it's becoming, very big story, very controversial in a lot of cases. And to fill us in, I bring you our aviation enthusiast. Let's give it up for Rich Kaplan.
Animals on airplanes is not uncommon. We see it all the time. Delta Airlines is just one of several airlines tightening requirements for people who have service animals traveling with them. As of March 1st, passengers will be required to show documentation that the animal does provide an appropriate service for them. For example, a guide dog for a blind person. This is due in part to the growing abuse by passengers of this service. A lot of passengers have like purebred dogs, so they figure that can qualify as a service dog, when in reality we all know that it's not the case. One such example was an artist who brought a peacock, of all things, on a plane, claiming it to be a service animal. In this particular case, the artist by the name of Antico had purchased a separate seat for her peacock Dexter, and this was not permitted by the airline, which cited various weight restrictions along with its size. Now, I did a little research on peacocks because I myself am curious to want to know how in God's green earth you thought you could bring this animal on an airplane. And one interesting piece is that this is just one of many examples of people trying to push the envelope of what is appropriate to bring on a plane as a service animal. The male peacock can grow up to 5 feet tall and weigh between 8 to 13 pounds. Now, the reason why I mention this is every flight you calculate the weight of the aircraft. It is vital, because when you fly, you need to know exactly how much weight is on board so you can calculate your landing, how much runway you're going to need to land, what your airspeed is. It's a lot of work. A lot of people don't realize what goes into flying a commercial jet. The peacock can also have a nasty temperament, which makes them an animal you would not want on an airplane. Now, another interesting piece that I found while researching this, Howie, is that people have tried to bring various animals thinking that these are service animals. And when I tell you the types of animals, it'll make your head spin. People have tried to use snakes, spiders, possums, turkeys, and many other creatures as service animals. Early in January, Delta Airlines, the world's second largest carrier, placed restrictions on emotional support animals after many people tried to push the boundaries of the rules regarding service animals. Now, I believe the ultimate solution is appropriately vet each animal to determine whether or not it is appropriate for them to even travel on an airplane. I think that it all begins with vetting. This, in my opinion, is the best solution to the problem. The passengers need to obtain appropriate documentation verifying the need for the animal. And they also need to consider the type of animal they're bringing on board the plane. I've heard in many cases, one such incident, a person brought a kangaroo on a plane. Kangaroo got loose, breeded with a bunny rabbit at JFK. Now you have abnormally large rabbits roaming the grounds of JFK. No joke, it's legit. I couldn't believe it when I researched that, but I've seen it. I've seen these bunnies, and they're mutants. They are not normal. But what's remarkable, Howie, is what people consider to be service animals. And I think that we as people, when we fly, we have the right to fly safe. We have the right to know what's going to be on that airplane, what you can bring on an airplane. If you're going to bring a puppy dog, that's one thing. If you're going to bring a possum or a raccoon, that's a totally different ballgame. And if you consider that a service animal, then you need more than a service animal. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, Rich, that was a great job. Let's give it up for Rich. Some idea just popped in my head. Rich, are you up for a challenge?
Always.
All right. Just an idea popped in my mind. Due to the fact that we have three lovely people from Poland, an idea popped in my head that one of the worst airline catastrophes involving famous politicians happened in about a Polish flight where
Yes,
several
it's
members of
154.
the Poland cabinet went down. So how about we'll do an interview about that later in the show. You can do, unless you're ready now.
I'm ready to go.
Let's bring them up. Let's bring them up. Let's bring up Adam and Jaga and everyone. Also, let's bring them up. Let's bring them all up. You know all that?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Learned it in school.
Yeah.
We talked about it in school, the Tupolev 154.
Yeah. This is like sometimes an idea just hits me, so I figured
I love your ideas.
Let's roll with it.
I love being challenged.
Yeah, you guys can sit here. Okay. Okay. You know, I remember when this happened. Adam, you can sit down. I remember when this happened. And I remember days after it happened, I talked to my neighbors, Adam and Jaga, and I know that you were so devastated. This was such a horrific event. What are your memories of that terrible day when that plane went down and so many important people from your country were lost?
Actually, it was a very tragic day, and I remember because it was April 10. I remember because a few hours ago my grandson was born.
Oh,
So
Yes,
it
the
was
same day.
insane.
it was a very bittersweet day.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I remember like
We
100 years from
remember.
now. And president and a lot of like famous and great people from Poland died. And its tragedy is because up to this day, so like from 2010 April, today we don't know what happened.
Wow.
It was tragedy, but it was probably explosion, but who did? So we did not.
You remember the devastating loss of losing so many important people in your country on that tragic day and having your grandson born on that same
Yes,
day?
yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes, I remember exactly the day. You are first people who told me about this tragedy. And first I remember my son told me maybe 7 p.m. very early. His very tragic day for Poland.
Alec, what are your memories about that terrible day?
I actually remember talking to my dad. He was the person who told it to me. And like Adam said, it's crazy that still after like a couple years we still don't know what happens because the information from the black box from the flight still wasn't recovered. And just the mere fact that you have or you would put so many of the country's most important people on one plane and that plane would crash. It's just a tragic coincidence that will forever be remembered in our country's history.
Let's talk about the details of the flight and
Absolutely.
the plane, and let's talk more about the from the perspective of a flight enthusiast, exactly about the flight they were on and what you know, what you researched.
Absolutely. In fact, I have it right in front of me. On April 10, 2010, a Tupolev Tu-154 aircraft of the Polish Air Force crashed near the city of Smolensk, Russia, killing all 96 people on board. Now, they ruled that the cause of the crash was controlled flight into terrain or pilot error, which is not uncommon. The Russians, what a lot of people don't know about the Tupolev 154 is it's a very tricky aircraft to fly. It's 3-engine jet. It's just like a Boeing 727. It's a mid-size aircraft, can sit about 150 people, I believe. I may be wrong because I'm a little weak on Russian aircraft. I haven't really been up to par research-wise, but I know the aircraft very well, and I can tell you that they jokingly refer to it as a 727 ski. The Russians love this plane. They fly it a lot. It's very big in Eastern Europe as well as in Asia. The problem with the Tupolev, though, is it's very temperamental. It's not an easy plane to fly. A lot of pilots don't like it because of the fact that it's very difficult to fly, Howie. I have pictures of the wreckage, in fact, if my videographer can zoom in. This is the aft section of the jet. It's one of the beautiful things about having an iPad is that I can access this when we need it. And this is just one pic of 4 of the wreckage. And he was coming in low. I don't have all the details as to the parameters of this. I have more pics though. Here's another one showing the engine. If you can zoom in right over here, Howie, this is the engine of the aircraft. The engines were mounted on the side of the fuselage, just like the 727, and the third engine set made it to the tail. The aircraft had tricycle main landing gear. This is an actual picture of the airplane. I'm going to show it to our viewers watching. If I can zoom in on it. It's being very temperamental today for some reason. There we go. That's a Tupolev 154. Very similar to a Boeing 727 that we flew in the late 70s to early 90s. The Russians love this plane because it's apparently very easy to maintain, but very difficult to fly. And the fact that you lost 96 people to pilot error is a huge slap in the face of the Polish government, because the Polish government now fly modern aircraft. I'm proud of that. I'm part Polish, and I can tell you I'm very proud of that fact, that they maintain these planes meticulously. I think we all know that. A lot of airlines just got 787s, so the Polish know exactly what's going on. They're on top of these things. Right after they grounded the whole fleet, replaced it. But the sad thing is, you can replace an airplane, but you can't replace the loss of life. We learn from each crash. And I've said it all before, and I'll say it till I'm dead, that it takes plane crashes for us to learn how to prevent plane crashes. You unfortunately have to have these incidents in order to really fully understand the parameters of safe flying. And I think that the Polish government, it took them years to find a cause, because there was, as you could see, the wreckage was so spread over a wide range. And when you have a wide range debris field of wreckage, from a forensic standpoint, it's very difficult to come up with an acute cause. This particular crash, the plane plunged into the terrain, which we refer to as a controlled crash. He ditched. Why he ditched, we don't know. It may have been fog, it may have been the weather that day. I don't have the full report in front of me. I will follow up on it, and I will do a follow-up on this story, because I think it's important for people to know what really happened. But from what I can tell, it looks like the weather that day may have been foggy. The aircraft doesn't have the kind of radar that the new jets today have, like Doppler. We have Doppler, we have NextRad. Those type of radars would have given him a sense of the terrain in the area. It would have indicated if there were microbursts or wind shear. So there's a lot of parameters that played into this crash. But to lose such important people, so in my opinion, senselessly, it's hard. It's very hard.
Now, Adam, this was such a devastating loss to your country. How long did it take Poland to get, adequate replacements? And it must have taken years because of so many important people were lost.
Probably not years, 10 years, maybe more than 20, 30 years. But one thing, full explanation will be in April this year. So we will see. But the most famous expert from Great Britain, probably Taylor. Mr. Taylor is like among 18 people in the world, the most experienced expert said that it's 100% explosion. So the problem will be who did this.
Oh, so you
So
think
it's
it's
not
terror?
a Polish, not a Polish version.
So you think it was terror?
Yeah,
Wow.
but who did? Because it's not possible. Imagine it is not possible that this kind of plane, from 15-20 meters, hit the ground without hole. So first time and second time, and did like 60,000 pieces. So it's not visible plane. So it was not possible in the world. But it was like bushes, low trees, and soft ground. So it's not possible. So from like 10,000 meters, the plane was in better condition on the ground, like from the Britain Lockheed,
Lockerbie.
yeah, or last in Ukraine
Yeah.
when Russia shot down the plane.
Yes.
So it was
When you
in
have
better condition. So it's not possible without an explosion.
I want to touch base on something that you just brought up because that's fascinating. Flight 800, a lot of people talk about the missile theory. I was one of the people that investigated Flight 800. As an independent, I was not AFA certified. I was asked because I was familiar with the 747. And one thing that was fascinating about seeing the wreckage was what you brought up, the fact that there was so much of it. That you didn't have massive, intact sections of aircraft, that you had parts of this airplane that would fit on this table, Howie. So from a forensic standpoint, you bring up a very good point. And I myself am very anxious to want to see what the results of this investigation is going to be, because they're saying pilot error, which is the Russian way of basically telling everyone to shut up and go away and let it die. It doesn't end that way, though, because part of the problem is that this aircraft has a horrible safety record. I'm not going to lie. It's one of the worst airplanes ever built.
But
Are we going to know in April, definitely, that it was, so when the report comes in April, they're going to tell us that it was
What happened?
terror.
What happened?
So, and don't you think that people in Poland especially want closure? They want an answer because they've been waiting so long for an answer.
Yeah, every month it's like parade. Like every month, so it's not anniversary. Like
Anniversary,
like
No,
month
no, no.
anniversary.
Oh,
The commission.
it's almost the 10th anniversary of the flight crash.
Yes.
That's
It's
why I
every
feel
month
it's.
like a parada w sumie.
Oh, okay. So I think what we want to say is that since it happened a while back, now it's like one of the anniversaries of the plane crash. So it will be a good like fest, or like a good festivity to like finally tell people what happened, and so that they can move on, or like not even move on, but they can remember what happened.
I think this would be a real appropriate time There are going to be people watching this video, your relatives, your friends. Let's talk to your friends in Poland about what we just talked about.
In Polish?
Yeah, in Polish. For your friends in Poland, about getting the information for this.
Okej. To znaczy, o czym właśnie opowiadaliśmy, jest o tym, jak samolot z naszym prezydentem
Tak,
i
z
premierem.
i z wszystkimi, z całą generacją. Z prezydentem, z częścią parlamentu, ze wszystkich partii, nie tylko z jednej partii, z wszystkimi generałami armii, czyli armii, lotnictwa i dowództwo naszych wojsk. No i dużo takich jeszcze
Powiedz, po co mi?
takich naukowców i lecieli, tak, no powiedz po polsku, lecieli upamiętnić.
Chodzi o to, że lecieli i
Upamiętnić.
samolot spadł i ponad 80 osób zmarło w
96.
tym... 96 osób zmarło w tym tragedy. Katastrofie. Zmarło w tej katastrofie i teraz za niedługo właśnie dostaniemy wyniki z tego, co się naprawdę stało i dlaczego samolot spadł, jakie były komplikacje.
Tak. No.
I always say, let's end a story on a positive note. Talk about in Polish how nice it was to make 2 friends from your country today.
Nie no, właśnie super. Poznałam
Ja.
Jagę i Adama, przepraszam, teraz wasze imiona razem zdałem. Poznaliśmy się przez Howie, właśnie on nas zakontaktował, żebyśmy tutaj przyszli i zobaczyli show. I tak tu się spotkaliśmy, taki mały świat jest, no nie? Obydwoje pochodzą z Krakowa, nie jest to za daleko od Katowic. I spotkaliśmy się na drugim końcu świata, tutaj w Nowym Jorku.
Words about this nice young man you met.
No nie, ja jestem zaskoczony, że taki młody człowiek po prostu ma tak dużo zainteresowań. Szkoda, że nie rozumiał, że ma tak dużo zainteresowań i trzymam kciuki, żeby je rozwijał. Bo jest po prostu tak utalentowany, jest tak przystojny. It's like movie star.
All right. Beautiful. Thank you very much. It was a great job. Beautiful.